Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, Katie and I get to answer some questions that you have so thoughtfully submitted to our question submission section on our website. We've said this before, but this is probably our favorite type of episode to do. That is hearing some of the things that you're going through in your homes. It gives Katie and I a lot of food for thought. And we just get to honestly have some first-time conversations pretty spontaneously here, in front of you all. If we say anything crazy or we offend the other person, we usually edit it out. So you actually don't hear the raw, unfiltered. No, I'm joking. You hear pretty much the raw, unfiltered.
I was going to say that is true, but I think the last time we did that was in our last house. So it's been, I don't know.
I think that was actually 2 houses ago.
Yeah, maybe 2 houses ago.
Do you have, maybe you are thinking of one that I
No,
can't
I'm
remember.
not. I'm just thinking it's been a really long time.
It has been a long time since we've, stepped on each other's toes during an episode.
Yeah. Enough to cut it out. You guys know when we do a little bits here and there, but that kind of makes it fun.
Yeah. But before we jump in, we just want to ask you if you're able to leave a rating or a review on iTunes or Spotify or Amazon, really wherever you listen to podcasts. We would love it if you're able to do that, leave a rating or a review. And if you do watch our podcast on YouTube, if you hit the like button or if you subscribe to our channel or leave a comment, that also really helps our podcast grow as well. So with all that being said, we're going to get this thing rolling.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
All right, so Kate, I'm just going to jump into these questions.
Okay, let's go.
A listener asks, have you ever talked about what you will do if your children want to date someone you are not super fond of or you don't approve of? I know you guys went through a few trials in your dating relationships.
This is a good question.
Yeah.
And it's something that Elisha and I have actually talked about a lot because I think there's a difference between not approving of someone and not being fond of someone. And I think that the two get confused or conflated. And I think that it's important as parents that we decipher between the two. And I think it's way trickier when your emotions are involved than it is to armchair quarterback someone else's relationship or even your own relationship. And so, for instance, I think with our relationship, when my dad and mom sat down and were like, okay, is Elisha going to provide for Katie? Yes. Is he going to lead her spiritually? Yes. Is he going to raise our children in the nurture or grandchildren in the nurture and admonition of the Lord? Yes. Then it didn't really matter if they were fond of him in that moment or not. They did approve of him and they decided to approve. And the crazy thing is like if Elisha had come in from out of nowhere, we laugh about this sometimes in the family. Like if he just like blown in from the Midwest, my dad would have been stoked out of his mind to be meeting Elisha. Sometimes I think when you watch someone grow up, you just think you know someone and you don't. And so I think that's what Elisha had going against him. It wasn't actually Elisha. He was incredible. And so I think that's what I guess I'm hoping to see when it comes to our kids is have this really be clear before our emotions get involved. And I know this is easier said than done, but I'm serious. Like I want to remind ourselves of this. And we've talked about it so much on the podcast and we talk about it with our kids. And so I'm hoping we're prepared. What are the big things that we're looking for in a spouse? Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's not like there's gonna be a lot of girls, Lord willing, coming into our family. And it's not, okay, well, she doesn't dress exactly like we have our daughter dress, or, she doesn't do exactly what we thought she would do or whatever. I want to look for the big things. I don't know what you would say, Elisha.
Yeah, any answer we give is going to be 100% theoretical because our children are nowhere close to the dating age. And so we have talked about it. And I guess that's really what the listener is asking. Like, have you guys considered how this will go down? And yes, we've considered it. And we know it's just speculation at this point. I think our goal is, for me as the father, I really don't want my ego to get involved when it comes to a boy pursuing my daughter. I think that happens a lot in, I would say in more conservative families where the father is playing a role in that dating or courtship process, which I think is great. And I want to play a role in that, in that process. And I really want to have my daughter's heart, and I want the suitor, the one pursuing my daughter, to want to honor her by honoring me. And so I want to keep it in that order. I don't want to think like, okay, I am the one that you are coming to court and to win over. It's like, no, does my daughter like him? Is she interested? Okay, then I really want to have a humble attitude of, one, realizing he's young. So I don't want my daughter, if she's 19 or if she's 20 or 21, I don't want her to marry a 41-year-old. So I don't want to have expectations or standards for a boy that's, or a young man who's in his early 20s or late teens. I don't want to be comparing him to a 41-year-old, or to, somebody that's in their 30s and think that there should be a certain number of ducks he has lined up in a row. So I think those are things that I'm predicting being a challenge for me, is my ego really, because right now we only have one daughter. And so when it comes to somebody pursuing my daughter, I could really see getting protective and making it about me, essentially, rather than about my daughter.
Yeah, I think that's like the biggest hang up with parents being involved in relationships is making it about them.
Right.
And potentially, like, my feelings might be hurt with the daughter-in-law coming in, or the way my son treats me with this girl, or whatever the case may be. And I see that a lot with moms getting their feelings hurt. And it's just like, if that happens, it's okay. You know what I mean? They're young, they'll grow up, just pursue the relationship. So I think the same thing, because I totally see potential hangups when I imagine different girls coming in that the boys are interested in. And I just want it. I feel like I'm preparing my heart now. I really want my sons to get married. I want Lucy to get married. I think marriage is one of the greatest gifts that God's given us here on this earth. And obviously to the right person, right meaning that this person is going to love the Lord and raise our grandchildren up in Him. Not like lead our children astray, I guess. But outside of that, there's so many different preferences and personality types and the way people do things. And I don't want to get hung up there, and I don't want to be an inhibitor of my children getting married, because I think marriage is more fruitful than singleness. And I know that's like a crazy thing. I know the Lord calls some people to singleness, and they can have a very fruitful singleness. But I think that the way God designed men and women were to be fruitful together, and that's ideal. And so I really want that for my children. And I see so many things right now with the millennial generation, with the Z, Y generation. There's so many hangups when it comes to marriage. And I feel everyone's being really picky, including parents. And it's resulting in a lot of kids not getting married. And it's really sad, I think. So
something I do appreciate about my parents, because I went through dating someone that they were not thrilled about, and that they didn't see as being. It wasn't that they disapproved of her. I forget what the words are. That
approve of
or have concern. Yeah, just not thrilled about. And I want to also be aware of the fact that by the time my son or my daughter wants to date someone, there is an attraction, there's an affection there's some kind of like knitting of the hearts together has already transpired, most likely. And I think that my ego, going back to egos, I think egos probably plays a big part in dating for any man, whether it's the father, or the son, whatever, father of the girl, or the one pursuing the girl. And when I felt like my discernment was being completely disregarded or disrespected, then I really put my heels in the ground. I think that happens a lot when parents disapprove of a dating situation, is that the couple just they infuse more together and they shut the parents further out.
It's kind of like an us against the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Thing that actually bonds you.
Exactly. And then it wasn't until my parents got on board, and they're kind of like, hey, you know what? You're a man. You're seeking the Lord. We really want to just we don't want to be naysayers here. We want to, we trust the Lord is leading you. We want to support you. Then I really sobered up and I realized that this girl was not Katie Joy Johnson.
That was the number one problem, is she wasn't me.
Yeah, she wasn't you. And then I felt, I guess, empowered, or that the burden fell on me. The responsibility was on me. And I was like, this isn't right. And so I always want to maintain that ally relationship with my sons and my daughter when they're in that dating relationship, and not make such a huge statement, out of because I think if somebody comes in and you hear your child wants to date them, and you come out of the gates with, "Are you kidding me?" And you say something huge, it's really hard to walk that back, right? It's really hard. You kind of like blew your credibility, and they might shut down entirely. So I guess I want to be prepared for that too. If any of my children do have a desire to date someone that I really don't think is right for them, or maybe I don't approve of, I don't want to just be a loose cannon. And
we want to be subtle, not come out as antagonists.
Exactly.
Basically, because once it's them versus you,
Yes.
you don't have a lot of room to speak into their life. So, yeah. So, anyways, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the spouses that are get brought into our children's life, and I am expecting it to be hard as parents. As joyful as it is, I expect the dating process, when you really care about your child and you're involved, for it to be so easy to overstep. And I don't want to be that parent. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, real quick. If you're looking for music lessons for your family, piano lessons, guitar lessons, fiddle lessons, ukulele lessons, mandolin lessons, you can subscribe to Voteberg Music Academy and get lessons for the whole family. Subscribe to the piano course, one subscription, get you piano lessons for the whole family. Subscribe to guitar, that gets you guitar lessons for the whole family. We'll link it below. You get a special discount, and you can see that below by listening to our podcast. That's how you get the discount. Go check it out. Okay, Katie, you got rid of your can opener? They want to know more. What do you do for opening cans now?
I don't get cans. So it works great. I will say this. It's not like I am canless. This is a letter of the law thing. So my tuna pops open with a little popping, those little thumb openers, and I totally still get tuna. Okay. So if something comes with a pre-open can, I'm not opposed to it. But it basically is just a way for, if I don't have a can opener, it's accountability for me not using things that come in cans. And so I'm forced to put my beans in the slow cooker or in the Instapot, or get fresh coconut milk, or I'd say those are probably the biggest things for me. Tomato sauce, we now get in glass jars from Azure Standard. I made my own tomato paste, which has worked great. It keeps in the fridge for 3 months. So it's like 5 hours one day baking in the oven, and then you have it for a long time, and it tastes super flavorful. And so it's just a step towards knowing more what's in our food and getting rid of all the stuff leaching into our food. And I just figure, if I don't have a can opener, I won't be like, I'll just get a can this time. And it's been true.
Yeah, it's been great.
We just go without if I haven't thought ahead to get the beans made or the tomato sauce made. So I do think it's really fun too to can your own products, but that's not something we're doing this year. So that's the whole story.
That's the whole story.
Yeah,
Good.
I couldn't find
Glad
a
you're
cute
able
can opener. And I realized, if I couldn't find it cute and vintage, then it wasn't worth having. There's a reason these vintage people didn't have can openers.
That's right. You ready for another fun question?
Okay, yeah.
If you had an all expenses paid vacation for 2 weeks and could choose between Italy, the UK, Spain, or France, where would you go?
Paris, France.
For 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, for food? You've been into food lately.
Well,
that's probably why. Yeah.
Food would be huge.
Okay.
I have a ton of places I'd like to. There's a lot of books in France, and the flea markets. I would just go shopping.
The books, the flea markets, and the food?
Yeah, I'd ship for insane amounts of money, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Giant gold pictures of like Louis the Third.
Yeah, is that included in the all expenses paid?
Oh yeah.
That'd be
Oh
great.
man,
Pay
if
for
it's
us
included.
shipping. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like my dream. I've shipped some stuff from France to our home here, just like an item here or there, and I would just go crazy in those over there at the flea markets.
Yeah, we've probably said this online, or sorry, on that episode before, but our home is very like I guess French.
Parisian
Yeah,
farmhouse.
It is. It's exactly. And so you've been scouring the internet for anything that fits that. Nice. You knew right away.
Well, yeah, it's easy with those options. Okay, so what would it be for you?
For me, the first thing that stood out to me was the 2 weeks. Katie and I are so bad at taking vacations. Like 2 weeks sounds like such a long time.
I know. I'd probably we do. That's what I mean. Like it'd have to be an objective there.
Right. So when I saw it, I was like, oh man, that's a long time. Does it have to be for 2 weeks? And then I thought between all those places and with my limited knowledge, I've never been to Europe at all. But Italy seems like it's got the most, diverse. I know it's not the biggest out of those countries, I don't think. But when I think of like the Amalfi Coast, then also like the Alps, then like wine country, and you go over to Venice and you can go to Rome and see the Vatican. Like it just seems like there's a lot. That lake, was it Lake Como? Como, I think. It just seems like Italy, what I know of it, has a lot of diversity that would be really fun for 2 weeks to check out all those different places. So many different coastal cities that would be fun, mountainous cities. Like I said, the wine country, then it also has, the historical relevance as well.
Yeah. So that totally makes sense. And Italy, when we've talked about going to Europe one day, someday, either with the kids or when they're a little bit older and we could leave them for 10 days or something, Italy is the number one place I think of going. And then I'd like to pop over to France. That would be more my ideal.
Okay.
But if I could only go one place, I just have to check out.
Yeah.
I just have to go shopping.
Yeah. If we go, we'd be shopping for 2 weeks.
We'd be
in Paris.
Like, we need it to be all inclusive, all the shopping.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's really the only reason I would like to go to Paris, France. Yeah, see the Eiffel Tower, whatever. But you could probably do that all in like a day or a couple days. So I think I'm with you, like Venice and the wine country. And I would love to stay in Italy. It sounds very
and I
romantic.
guess the thing is too, is I'm not much of a city. We're not city people actually in general.
Yeah.
And so I know that there's beautiful countryside in all those countries. But for whatever reason, the Italian countryside, it came to my brain first.
Okay. And I might just be hearing I might be totally off, but I heard that France is pretty dirty. I don't know if that's true.
Like the streets are grimy.
Like the streets and stuff. I don't know if that's accurate, but I hear that there's been a lot of immigration there, and I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
So I don't know if that's the case, but
yeah, Katie and I are not globetrotters at this point in our life. I do think it's going to be a part of our future, but we are not like the cool, good at traveling couple. It's like a big deal for us just when we travel domestically. We don't have smartphones. We're printing off our tickets. At the everything's just a big deal. So
we're like Amish. Actually, I think the Amish are more tech forward than we are. We were in Lancaster, and I felt sometimes a little bit behind.
Please, I've asked this question several times over the last year and would love guidance. What practices do you do to help and train children, your child, to be quiet in their rooms in the morning and during quiet time? My children are 3, 5, and 6, and we've had these practices in place. The okay to wake clock. I'm guessing that's kind of like ours.
Like Mala, I'm guessing.
Like that. And a daily quiet time for over a year, and still struggle daily with fighting, being loud, etc.
Okay. So number one diagnosis here is we don't have our kids together as often as possible for things like this, for quiet times.
Right.
So I know that's not always possible. For us, we have utilized, and we currently utilize actually, our pantry, our laundry room, and split the kids up. Bathrooms, I know that these places are not always safe, so you would have to orchestrate getting the chemicals out of the way. You have to use your parental judgment. We do, and we don't keep chemicals in these places. We move stuff around. And depending on if the baby's in a pack and play that we could put in the bathroom, or, I wouldn't put a 3-year-old toddler on the loose in there. But these are things that help us separate out the kids so that they can have a true quiet time. We've utilized big closets for this. And now you guys see why we stopped showing our life online. But I think you have to get creative. Splitting up the kids is going to be the easiest thing that you can do for that afternoon quiet time in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. So like we have a little crib mattress that sometimes we pull out of the crib and put on the floor in the laundry room. It's dark in there, put a sound machine, and the 4-year-old naps like a baby. If he is in with the 2-year-old, everyone's just having a party. Mm-hmm. It's a little different for bedtime.
Yeah, we are very strict for the quiet time. And I mean, 90% of the time you enforce the quiet time because I'm usually not home during that time. But just separating the kids because they enjoy the break. I think it's a reset for them. They're excited to get back together after the quiet time and play with one another. So I think that is crucial, being able to give them each their own activity and give them a break from one another. And then in the morning time, yeah, I think just being strict on what the expectation is. And something that's really helpful for Katie and I is that this is a recent, I'd say like 2 weeks ago, it had become an issue with, and it's ongoing, right? Because some kids hit a new stage where they weren't making noise early in the morning and now they are, and they're getting up earlier. And with our age range right now, we've got our oldest is 8, and then we've got the newborn still, and everybody sleeps for different lengths of time. And so we had to kind of juggle who was sleeping in which room based off of who was sleeping longer and who was getting up earlier. And so that was a recent mix up for us, is we're like, okay, we got to rearrange people here. And that was actually really helpful, was thinking of different combinations. And again, maybe you don't have that luxury of having more than, one bedroom for your children, but we do, we've got two bedrooms, for our kids. And so we can kind of try different combinations. And our current combination is working much better than the previous combination. And something else that's way easier is when I'm up before the kids. And so if I'm waking up to my kids making noise, then it's really hard to establish a boundary and an expectation. And so that might seem overwhelming because if they're getting up at 5 right now, you're like, man, I'm not going to wake up at 4:30, or that seems too early or not very sustainable. But if you do it and then you're able to be ahead of your kids, you can start moving that time back if you're up before the kids. And so that's what we've been doing, because there for a bit, sleep was hard for Katie and I. We had the newborn. You weren't sleeping great. I wasn't sleeping great. And it was hard for me to get up before the kids. So I was waking up to the kids and then feeling behind all morning and trying to pacify different people. And then the kids that were not going to wake up, naturally were getting woken up by the other kids. Now, when I'm the first person awake and I hear that first wrestling, I can really manage everything and remind them of the expectation, remind them of the standard, and the house is much quieter and peaceful for a lot longer in the morning.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. We have something I share about in the Get It All Done Club that was really helpful for us is morning bags. And so we still do this for the younger two. So we actually put our 2 younger children together. And initially, I was thinking having a big kid would be calmer with a little kid, but the big kid was trying to sleep in and the little kids were waking up the big kids in both rooms. So we ended up putting our younger children together because they seem to be on the same wake schedule. And you go in with a toy or a book that they only get during that time and a snack about 30 minutes before they wake up. Before they come out of their rooms. So it just kind of helps break up, if they're in their room for an hour after they wake up, if they're waking up at 6:30 and they don't come out till 7:30 or 6 to 7 or whatever the case may be, they know that they just have to lay there for a period of time until their wake clock shows it's playtime. And then they know that they get a snack and a fun activity. And I think that this just cuts down on the fighting because there's not as much boredom and they just aren't at each other. It's something fun they get to do. I would also recommend that if you only have one room to nap your children, which there have been times when we have had limited space to nap our children, and I have sat in the room with the kids and had them lay on their beds and not be allowed to get off their bed Keep your head on your pillow was the rule. They could open their eyes, but there was no talking and you had to keep your head on your pillow and then have a big loud fan or white noise. And I would sit in there with my computer and I'd do my computer work. And so I was just able to enforce that. And the ones that needed to sleep would fall asleep and the other ones could sit there and look at a book or something like that. So that's another way to kind of have your quiet time with the kids' quiet time and enforce that total peace and quiet. I'm trying to think of anything else that's helpful in the mornings, but I think that's mainly what's coming to mind. I think something that's big when kids are sharing bedrooms are to just have clear boundaries so children aren't playing together at those times. So our children don't get out of their beds. Mm-hmm. So it's like they can have books. They'll stash books at the end of their bed the night before. But it's kind of like the floor is hot lava. You don't get out of your bed. The toddler stays in the crib. No one gets in the crib. And that is also helpful for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Okay, one last question. And we've gotten this a few times. The most recent one, I'm going to paraphrase because the questions aren't pulled up. But it was somebody saying, I hear they've heard us along with other podcasters or influencers talk about going lower and lower tech. But then when they do that, they're not able to listen to these podcasts that they love. It's surprising how often we get this question or this comment. And so we're huge fans of going as low tech as possible for our own quality of life. Like that's really the main point of it. But we listen to all of our podcasts that we've ever wanted to listen to on our computers. That's my answer. It's like I've never not been able to listen to podcasts or watch YouTube. So getting rid of our smartphones was us going low tech. So we don't have smartphones. We don't have, some social media apps. But we both have a laptop computer.
Yeah, we don't have any personal social medias, but we do have a business social media. Mm-hmm. And we're clearly on YouTube with the podcast. So it's just no personal use, I guess. But yeah, if you have a computer, you can do anything you need to online. It just takes more intention. So again, we aren't anti-tech, but we are anti-tech using us whenever it wants.
Right.
And so as it is, it's just a clear line when, hey, we're going to listen to a podcast. Actually, we have a friend who listens to this podcast and she doesn't have internet at her house at all. Mm-hmm. So she goes and downloads the podcasts every once in a while at her in-laws' house and then is able to listen to them at her house. Yeah. So there's like so many different variations of low tech. That doesn't mean you want to hide under a rock and not use any technology. It just means you're sick of, seeing your screen time be 4 or 5 hours a day.
Right.
And you do something about it.
Not knowing what it was for. Yeah.
Exactly.
What was I consuming? Yeah. Cause I think that was our biggest, I don't know if it was our biggest, but I think it was my biggest motivator in getting rid of a smartphone was not knowing what I was doing on my phone. I knew which podcasts I love. I knew which Bible teaching I loved. I knew which YouTube channels I loved. And they weren't the problem. It was everything in between.
Yeah.
Where it was like, yeah, those were 2 great podcast episodes, but I know it wasn't 4.5 hours worth of, screen time. And so just getting away from those and getting to our laptops or even a desktop, just makes everything far more intentional.
Yeah. I mean, it's like people that use social media or create social media, or in Silicon Valley, whatever, and they don't have smartphones or they don't give their kids smartphones or whatever. It's like, you don't need that one unique device. I think we're kind of trained to think we need these things in order to be able to access everything in the 21st century. Right. And you could actually access everything very easily, just in a lot less addictive and dopamine hitting way. Mm-hmm. And it's not to say that we don't need guidelines for our computers too. And that's stuff that we evaluate.
Yes.
I think tech always needs to be evaluated,
right. But
you're very capable of using tech, and people have been for a long time now. You can use the World Wide Web without having apps.
It makes sense. Maybe if people were like introduced to podcasts or to YouTube through a phone, that's the only way they've ever accessed those things. I don't think I was. I think I've always listened to podcasts. Well, I mean, I did on my phone, but I also did on my computer. I think I was, I kind of did it on both devices. And so I knew I'd always have access to podcasts or to different websites that I enjoyed. on a computer.
Yeah. So good answer.
Yeah. All right. Katie, do you have any follow-up questions for me?
Okay, so this question caught my eye. Elisha, how do you teach kids that some things in books, such as mermaids, dragons, fairies, etc., are not real while not hurting their creativity or imagination?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much we're hurting or not hurting their creativity or their imagination, honestly, but we just tell them the truth. We just tell them, the mermaids are a fictional, creation. So are, fairies, whatever, all the things she's talking about. Dragons, that's debatable,
Jury's still out on the dragons, okay? We've got dragon believers over here.
And so, I think we just say that when it comes up in a story, they're like, well, when they ask us to explain it, if they ask us to explain I'm trying to think of a fictional
Well, I feel
thing.
like the kids will straight up ask. They go, someone asked the other day, are mermaids real?
Yeah.
We're just going, oh, no, mermaids aren't real. They're just make-believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, kids get make-believe. That's just all we say. And they're just as fun to make believe about and pretend you are. And, but it is kind of sad, honestly. We had a little neighbor boy that loved to come over our fence or sit on the fence and talk to the kids when he wasn't allowed to come over it. And he really thought that leprechauns were real, and he's 8 years old. And to me, that's just kind of a bummer because I think it's way more fun to pretend you're a leprechaun knowing that you live in this world without a leprechaun.
Mm-hmm.
Your world's just so confused. So I think it's really easy to just say, no, those things aren't real. They're just really fun or they're just really make believe. And then kids get to have, I don't think it squashes their imagination at all.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Again, I've never seen it as squashing their creativity or their imagination when we tell them something's not real. But we don't make them feel bad for thinking that it was real. No. It's kind of like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense that you thought, that there was flying elephants or something, because you maybe saw Bambi or something. Wasn't it Bambi that flew with the ears? But that's make believe.
Bambi, Elisha.
No, not Bambi. No, Dumbo. Is it Dumbo?
Elisha.
Sorry.
My word.
I thought it was, I messed up the name there.
Oh, man.
I can't think of fictional characters, or
Well, one of the kids said the other day, they go, who's that? There's a girl, all the little girls dress up like this little girl. She's like, she makes icicles or something. They say she makes icicles and she freezes things. It just made me so happy. They had no clue who else it was.
Oh, is that Frozen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, every time we go over to people's houses, they always have this ice costume for this girl. And it's like, oh yeah, Frozen.
Yeah. I guess elves, that's come up a lot.
Oh yeah, fairies. Because Lucy is a fairy flower book that's beautiful. We read that every night.
Yeah, I know we've read some, fantasy stuff too.
Gnomes.
Yeah.
Obviously,
gnomes.
I mean, reading Narnia, you have all kinds of things in Narnia.
Right. And we'll just tell them that it's not real. So anyways, Katie, thank you for answering these questions.
Thank you, Elisha.
Folks, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.